start off with thanking Al, actually, for setting the stage, giving us all the enthusiasm and the inspiration that we need to continue on this journey, because we all know that sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not so easy. I'm going to direct my attention also to that side of the room. You're very far, but you're definitely the ones that are staying. Maybe it's because it's closer to the exit here. And then I also want to thank all the presenters so far. Great ideas have come up. I've made lots of notes to really, because I think a lot of these ideas trigger other ideas, and I think together we're much stronger than always coming up with innovative ideas from our own team. So that is great. And then the last person I want to thank is Jessica, because she gave me some great ideas for presenting the information to you today, and you'll see how she helped me figure out the layout for this. So let's see how this works. So I want to start out with some, and hello people online, I forgot about you. So I want to start with some acknowledgements. I received funding from CIHR through Conestoga College, and my main appointment is at Conestoga College, and then I work with Schlegel villages on a lot of projects. Neighbourhood Team Development is the biggest project that we do. And I'm also very fortunate to receive lots of guidance, support, and inspiration from the Schlegel team members, from residents and families and other people around me. I don't need to present this slide to you. The reason that you are in this room is because you have recognized that the task-focused approach in long-term care is not bringing us anywhere. I think Mr. Kent, when we were looking at the differences between an institutional model and a relational model, he gave some very wise advice, and he said that first column makes me scared. The other column makes me realize that I have a life to live, and I think that's very true. We sometimes really get stuck in that task-focused approach. And unfortunately, long-term care environments and work routines and regulations are built based on that task-focused approach. We have shifts that serve really well the needs of what needs to happen at that certain time. But we sometimes forget that people live in a home, and needs don't always happen between 7 and 3, or between 3 and 11, or 11 and 7. Or the nursing desk doesn't need to be the most central place on the unit. We talk about neighbors, neighborhoods, team members, as opposed to residents moving in and having a nursing station in the middle of the unit. Picking up on some of the comments earlier made by Marlene, that language aspect is so very important. And I think as culture change movers and shakers, it's sometimes interesting when you go into another environment, you hear people talk, and certain language is almost offensive, the way how people talk, and you think, I just did not hear this word, or I can't believe what you said. I like the idea of the F word. That's a pretty strong example. But there is many examples in which I think we can move with team members to really be aware of the language we use. So a lot of the research in this area has focused on the quality of care. We have a tendency in Canada and actually across the world to focus on quality indicators. Quality indicators related to pressure ulcers and falls and the number of restraints we use. And those are very important things, especially in long-term care, where we all know we went through a time where it was through the roof and nothing was checked. And as a result, we had quality indicators implemented, and then we kind of went off balance. Then we went into the other direction, and now no restraints are allowed. Any pressure ulcer needs to be tracked, measured every 5 minutes, and being recorded somewhere. And the quality indicators are dictating what we do, what we say, and who we are in long-term care. So I want to pull it back and let us focus on quality of life. Obviously, quality of life is not possible without quality of care. If a person is in pain, they are not going to enjoy their life. And so we have to have an intervention there to do a good assessment, to figure out what is happening and deliver good quality of care. But we cannot jump to quality of care if we do not understand quality of life. And so when we talk about improving the care in long-term care environments, and I'm sure you sometimes get asked, well, how do we get the quality indicators better? Well, our answer is, how can you build strong teams? because you can't jump to quality of care without looking at the teams that are building the quality of life and quality of care principles and values. And so we know that we're not always doing a great job with the quality of life aspect. We have high turnover of staff or team members, sometimes not great communication between all those team members. In other work we're doing in some Schlegel villages and other long-term care homes, we have docs that say, I don't talk to PSWs, that's not my job. Or we have PSWs that say, I don't write things down in the communication book because we're not allowed to chart things in there. And all of that really leads to very poor care planning. At the end of the day, it is not about my job, my role, my scope of practice. It is about the person who is sitting or laying down in front of me who wants to be helped in a respectful manner. And it's not about highlighting what each of us is doing. It is about working together. And a focus on tasks is a focus on a job. And that's not where we need to go. So at Schlegel Villages, we started the journey on building neighborhoods and developing those teams. This has been a journey that started in 2008. It really is a comprehensive training and organizational change approach to build cross-functional teams. And I've been privileged, or some days I think cursed, to evaluate that. It's been a fascinating journey because we set out with some very clear measures what we wanted to pick up. And some of them were process measures, how our team's growing, and some of them were indicator levels. Do we have more pressure ulcers? Because at the end of the day, that's what we need to know. And also, that's what the funders are paying us for. So it's a very interesting balance. But before I'm going to talk a little bit more about these strong teams, we're going to do a neighborly exercise. And I'm going to ask you to just take 1 minute, turn to the people to the left or the right around you, and ask you what a strong team looks like. And hopefully you can come up with 2 words to describe a strong team. Okay, what do we have? What is a word to describe a strong team? I heard some words here. Interdisciplinary. What else?
Respect for each other.
Respect for each other.
Communication.
Communication, very good. What else? Oh, Sharon, go ahead.
Trust.
Trust, yes, I heard that a couple times. Trust. Anything there? Anything there? Yeah.
Understanding the roles, also understanding how we work.
Understanding each other's role so we can work together. And one last one, Jill? Transparency, great. And?
Somebody online said dedicated.
Dedication and commitment, very, very good. So you've just given me the principles of a strong team. So now I have a second question for you. How can we, through a neighborhood team development approach, build that kind of team? What will you need to do to have those principles in your team? And maybe think again of one action. Think about one of your teams, your care teams. What do you need to do with that care team to have trust, collaboration, working together, respect, listening to each other? What do you need to do? Build strong relationships. Sherry? Oh, that's what you said? Give them the tools and sometimes the time to do that. Great.
Show them that you care.
Show them that you care and that we care about each other. So these are some, oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say create a safe environment that people can actually feel they can share.
Create a safe environment. Beautiful. So you're providing us with kind of ideas to build strong teams. What we've done at Schlegel Villages is we've taken these teams, safe environments, building relationships, making sure that we can understand each other, and we've developed modules and we deliver those within each neighborhood to build a strong neighborhood team. The process of developing these modules and how they've been implemented, that's a whole other presentation, but I am going to talk a little bit about what has been the outcome of some of that. So we've seen that some teams, and thanks to Jessica for these, we've seen that our teams go from ordinary teams to extraordinary teams. Some teams start out as extraordinary, some teams start out as ordinary, but all are on a journey to become even more extraordinary. And I can tell you, we've had brainstorming sessions on how to call these teams. The team no and the team go, but that wasn't all that encouraging. The team exceptional and the team okay, which was not all that great. So we stuck with ordinary and extraordinary. And as a person whose English is not my first language, I can tell you this is a little challenging. But Mr. Kent, I am trying the best I can. So how do teams move from ordinary to extraordinary? Well, that's really what we want to know. So we collected a lot of different information. Some were stories and some were real hardcore measures that we normally collect in long-term care. And when team members from ordinary teams talked about what was happening on a day-to-day basis, they gave us these kind of quotes. They said, we have friendly interactions with other team members. We work as a team. We have good relationships with other team members. So you can see that these are strong statements. And because of these team members being a bit Schlegelized, they use the words relationships, team members, we are friendly with each other. But interestingly enough, when we compare that with extraordinary teams, we see different statements. We see, I have personal relationships. I have supportive relationships with other team members. An example of that is, I know when it's her birthday. I know she had a tough time. Or I actually asked about what happened last night because she was running off to one or the other event, and I was wondering if it was a Christmas party or not. We see extraordinary team members talking about collaborating and communicating across professions and teams, not just in their own team. And we also see extraordinary team members talking about empowering each other. They had stories about, I passed by and Elisa, I'm just going to use your name, it sounded like it was a bit rough in that room, so I went in and I said, how can I help? Because things are a little stressful here. Those were the examples we heard about empowering each other, as opposed to knowing what's going on in a team. So you can see that those teams are different. They know each other better and they are more entwined. When we asked team members over these last 4 years what they said about residents and families, and we conducted more than 300 interviews, we see ordinary teams talking about we adopt resident-centered care practices, and they have lots of really good examples. We promote those practices, and we have good relationships with residents and families. But again, when we go to the extraordinary teams, they give us stories about going above and beyond what is best for the residents. We hear stories about going camping with residents, or taking a resident home for the night, or maybe making a whole different dinner because somebody doesn't like the dinner that's being served, trying to find some groceries, trying to make something else in the country kitchen and serving that dinner. Going above and beyond of what is happening without being limited with all these rules and regulations. We hear stories about, I think, Erin Meadows' team going to Greece on a cruise and building a dream for those people that really wanted to do that. So sometimes when we give these examples, people look at you and they think, I know what they're thinking. They're like, right. No, you did go with Erin Meadows and a lot of residents to Greece. And we did go camping to last summer with some people that had dementia. So these extraordinary teams build personal relationships. They build deep personal relationships with the residents and the families. The constraints of our long-term care environments are not perceived as constraints by these extraordinary teams. They seem to manage quite well, finding a way to do things differently. They have the same resources, they have the same limitations like the ordinary teams, but they go beyond that. When we ask them to rank their leaders, we see something interesting. So scores on these leadership scales go from 1 to 5, and we're measuring transformational leadership. So if we have a score of 1, it means that that leader is supporting them, nothing more than that. If you have a score of 5, you have a leader that is truly transformational. That is a leader that gives you the wings to fly, that believes in you, that is going to support you in trying to achieve what you think is a good outcome for your team. That is a transformational leader. So those ordinary teams score their leaders around 2.4, like kind of in the middle, which is not bad. Extraordinary teams scored their leaders 2.9, and that was a really big surprise for us because we thought these extraordinary teams would score their leaders 4.9 or 5. What these extraordinary teams tell us is that, you know what, we're all leaders. We can do this. We don't have to step to a DOC or anybody else to ask for everything. That transformational leader has given us the boundaries in which we can play or the budget which we can work with, and we can do it with that. So we need wise leadership, but we also need leaders that know when to step back and let a team fly on their own, which is very, very interesting. When team members talk about their village, we score again from 1 to 5. 5 is the best place to work. It's a place that doesn't feel like work on most days. I always like to say, those days that I have to do budgets, my home doesn't feel like a home because I'm not all that great at it. But a home, it's a place where people live, work, and enjoy life. So ordinary teams score that experience at around 3.5. They like the place that they work at. Extraordinary teams score that a little bit higher. So again, there is something different in that atmosphere. I can tell you that the environment is not any different. The pay is not different. We had neighborhood teams that were ordinary and extraordinary on the same floor of the same village. So there is a difference in how people perceive what is happening around them. And then when we go to the mighty QIs, what everybody loves to see is, I just picked 3 because I just thought it was really interesting. If you look at number of restraints, our government is very interested in that number. In 100 residents, we have 19 of those residents unfortunately used restraints or were restrained in 2012, moving to 14.4. So there is a decline there, a sharp decline actually there. If you look at medication errors, it goes from 1.3, stays the same. A number of ER visits, which is obviously the main topic for the government, it goes from 2.9 to 9. I've given you 3 very different examples. We all know why restraints have declined. It's because of new policies and regulations that we ought to be restraint-free environments. It doesn't truly mean that restraints have gone down. It means that we've become very, very creative in finding alternative approaches to the use of restraints, which is great because they're better than physical or chemical restraints. But I've also given you examples of where QIs actually go up, such as ER visits. All of us working in long-term care know that that is happening all the time. Higher acuity, different expectations from the family members, different limitations on our scope of practice. We know that. And we know it's very difficult to keep that number down. So you need to keep these things in mind when you look at culture change. You cannot just look at ER visits and say, oh my God, they're going up. It's because we don't have good teams. No, overall, ER visits are going up just because that is the case. 20% of our residents in long-term care have heart failure. If we are not allowed to use IV Lasix therapy in long-term care, we're going to have more ER transfers. Another discussion needs to take place if that is a good idea or not, but that's beside the point right now. But let's look at the extraordinary teams now. Extraordinary teams have a different shift. They start out a little bit better, and then they still decline in the number of restraints. But the easier work is probably done already, but they are managing to go under that threshold of those with those residents or neighbors that it's probably a little bit more difficult to use an alternative approach to restraints. When we look at medication errors, we all know that medication errors happen because we do not have good continuity of care, we don't have good communication between different professions, and people are not well informed. Well, that one you can pick right up if you have a good, extraordinary, effective team right away. And there's other QIs like that you can pick up through a good team right away. Medication errors is definitely one of them. When we look at these ER visits, Now, this is interesting. They also go up in the number of ER visits, but not to that same extent. They've probably had conversations with families sooner in the process about decisions that have to be made. They are better prepared for what is going to happen, maybe with a person that has heart failure. They are just working together as a team in a much more applied, effective, relational way. So at the end of the day, these extraordinary teams do better, and we are trying to unravel what the secret is. But at the end of the day, why does it matter? Well, we need to build extraordinary teams. At whatever level we have them, or whatever level we start from, we need to build more extraordinary teams. I want to leave you with one action item in my last minutes to say I would love for you to take one of those sticky notes that Sherry and Carrie left on your table and write down one action that you can do as a leader and just fold it and put it in your pocket and take it home with you. And for your next meeting in your long-term care home, please take it out and look at it and say, there's something that I can do as a leader to make a difference in building strong teams, making sure we support the culture change journey in my home. Thank you very much.
That was great. Thank you so much, Veronique. Are there any questions? We do have a little bit of time for Veronique. Any questions from the audience? Any comments? Oh, excellent.
Thanks, Veronique. Very inspirational. I love your work. Anyway, my question is, in some other work that I'm involved in with staff in long-term care, I'm getting a lot of people now who really get it, but they're saying because there isn't sort of a checkbox on all the stuff you had on the left side about having a quality relationship with whether it's a team member or that it just doesn't matter. And so what counts is all the stuff that they have to document. And so what can we do as a collective to really start putting those indicators about spending time with people, having as being important to that relationship building, you know?
It's a beautiful question. I see other people going, who will have additions to what I'm presenting? But I think we have to really create that awareness at every possible level that it's not about the falls and it's not about the medication errors at the end of the day. We cannot go from an organization that focuses on medication errors without paying attention to the staff and to the team. We have lots of research that says that the biggest indicator for high quality of life, high quality of care is your team. It is not the online course on hand washing, although that's very important. But that's not going to do the trick. It is your team. And if you can build that awareness in the team, oh my goodness, miracles can happen. We've seen, I think, in all our journeys, we've seen amazing things happen because you invest, empower, believe in the capacity of a team. And so I just love to see these teams take off and figure out all kinds of things that I didn't even pick up what I thought was important or not important. Because if you invest in a team, the team will see things in a very different way. So I think my mantra is that people just need to be informed. We don't need to collect more data. We have everything we need, but let's use it wisely and say, it's really interesting to see how, I don't know, psychoactive meds went very different here. Is something happening to the team that is tough or that I've not picked up? Do you need some help or support, or can we talk about it? Instead of saying, let's add some Ativan. Like can you see how the team and the quality indicators, they're intrinsically linked, but people jump to the quality indicators because they think that's the solution. And it's not, really. But I'm going to pass it to Al because I think you had something to add there.
As usual, Sherry and I are on a similar wavelength here, and I'll just add another shade to that, and that is that I think you saw that while the quality indicators are important, there were some things that didn't affect them, and yet they improve people's lives. So I think that also says something about both research and policy, that we're not measuring everything we need to measure. And I think that's sort of part of what Sherry was saying, but we don't have, we're not, we do have some tools for well-being and some non-medicalized quality of life tools, but they haven't been embedded in our assessments, in our inspections, and the researchers aren't looking at them very much, you know, and we're still using ridiculous scales like you know, different scales for agitation, which has a million different causes, and yet we're testing interventions as if everybody is upset for the same reason. And so we have this whole research paradigm that needs to shift, and we have a policy paradigm that needs to shift. So I think that's part of culture change too, is helping people see that, yeah, it's important not to have a pressure injury or a restraint, but there's other things we're missing too.
When we asked for Canadian funding for this in a very scientific panel, we got, and Sherry knows this all too well, we got rejected 3 times because the comments from the, and then we got it. Because I was not going to give up on it. But the comments from the reviewers were, why would talking to PSWs help with quality of life? And so we did a little alcohol chocolate binge. And then we rewrote the application to explain to reviewers that it matters. But I do see that as part of our role as well, and my role as a researcher is to create awareness with policymakers, with funding agencies, that a team is a core component to cause a change in the culture of aging. And so it's been an interesting journey and not always valued and respected, but I know when in long-term care it makes a difference. So that's why we do this. Thank you.